So this next presentation is one I'm really excited about. It's lighting and angles, and again, this is the Atlanta Internet Video Marketing Association hands-on training workshop today, and I appreciate you all coming, and I appreciate the online audience as well. Gustav Wilde of
Cogito.
Cogito
Creative
is speaking on lighting and angles, and we just want to thank the sponsors, which are Showcase Photo and Video and Sony and CopyTalk.com, a video transcription company, Robbie and Michelle, who own this studio, Van Gogh Video Studios. They do live streaming here, and they have studio rentals. And then Tony Hale from Performance PC, he does live streaming remotely, and he also sells live streaming systems. So we'll let Gus tell us all about lighting and angles, a really important part about videography.
So when you think about cameras, lighting is literally everything, because what the camera does is records light. So different light wavelengths have different colors, so that's how it detects the color. But literally everything, the only thing the camera picks up is light. So it's super crucial. I would say lighting is the most crucial, and then your camera angles, your camera movement, and the lens selection is also crucial, but in my opinion, falls secondary to lighting. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to set up a 3-point lighting system. So I did touch on this briefly during the green screen session, but essentially it's a backlight, a key light, and a fill light. The backlight, like still with the green screen, it separates your subject from the background, gives them a little pop on the shoulders and the hair, gives them a little more depth. You can kind of, instead of your subject kind of just being flat onto your background, like just compressing the picture, the backlight really gives a nice, pleasing aesthetic depth to your shot. So you always want to get that depth in a shot. And when I was in school, it's one thing that my most influential teacher just kept drilling on me, because I didn't get it for the longest time, is that you need depth in your shot. I'm like, what's depth? And I just, you know, I would just set what I thought was a good shot. Like, yeah, the background looks great and the subject looks great, but you need, like, you want to avoid like shooting on a flat wall, because there's no depth to that. But if you could maybe get like an angle where the wall goes down and you can see some perspective of the lines going down, that's ideal. But for this demonstration, we're going to be shooting on a black wall, so forgive me. So our backlight's up. You can see there's some nice pop from the background. I'm going to bring this big guy over here without destroying anything. All right. I'm going to set this up as our key light. So this light's going to go directly onto our subject, but there will be some pretty good amount of diffusion going on. So let's see. See what that looks like. Nice. All right, and then on ideal situations, you will want to turn your house lights off, but for the sake of this, we will show you just how the lights are hitting different parts of our subject's face and body. And then this will be our fill light. Sorry for all the blinding lights and the heat. Might make you sweat a little bit, but okay, so now we have a basic 3-point lighting, and I wish I could see the monitor a little bit better, but you can see that this lighting, 3-point lighting, is a little more dramatic than, say, just one light at the front. You can see on this side, what's your name one more time?
Charles.
Charles. This side of Charles's face is a little more bright, and then on our left side, I guess that's his. It's a little more dark, so it gives like a little bit of what we call dynamic lighting. So it just kind of gives a little more energy. If you light just from the front, it's a little flat, just kind of blah. There's pros and cons to this. One of the bigger cons of this is if you're using an actor who might be a little older with some wrinkles. This side lighting is what it's called when it's not directly from the front. It does seem to exaggerate wrinkles or imperfections, even acne, bumps, anything that. So if you notice your talent might have some imperfections, you might want to stick to more straight-on lighting. We got a good model here with Charles, so the three-point lighting looks great on him. Yeah, and you can see this backlight. I mean, you can't tell with it because it looks normal, but if you look at it without it, as Ben will see, he might kind of melt back into the background a little bit, theoretically. We need a ladder. So yeah, see now there's just not the quite amount of pop that you want. Gives it really that professional, that step up that you can't really tell by looking at amateur video, but that really just brings it to another level subliminally. A lot of video is subliminal. That it's the details that really matter. So backlight's huge. A lot of people don't even, they forget about it. So that's 3-light. And while we're up at the 3-light, and yeah, we're gonna do it directly behind the camera. Don't need to break in.
Is it okay to ask questions now?
Absolutely, yeah. When you have a question, just let me know, and I'll.
Do you guys mind grabbing the microphone?
Oh, this one's giving you light too. Okay. Well, we'll do the best we can with the. Watch your eyes. All right, we might have to move it a little closer, but so see here you can see. Oh wait, can you move back? Where did you? Yeah, wherever it was.
Feel free to talk about bad skin.
My question is, if you're filming an actress, like you're filming now, do you use any other diffusers? You want to shoot them as best you can, especially if you're talking about their new film or something. Are there any other diffusers you use, or other light tricks that you use?
Definitely.
Or would you put any gels on? Or to show them in the best light possible? Yeah,
for like a glamour shoot, like if you were filming an actress talking about her film, I would use a more straight-on light. So there's not like you don't really want, unless it's a dramatic film and you want to give that. For glamour shoots, usually it's just centered light, so it's nice and even. You don't get like a nose shadow or eyebrow shadows straight on. Popular thing is like the ring light around the lens, so it's perfectly from like. There's pretty much virtually no shadows if you use a ring light.
So if it's really important that so you're recommending a ring light, then it's going to give you your best coverage then. Where you wouldn't be using this key light here and diffuser, or you'd still be using that?
You totally could. Like if we had these house lights off, see Donna's getting some side light, and that's what you kind of want to avoid if you're doing glamour shots, because the side light gives you those shadows and that harshness. And when you mention diffusers, you definitely want to use as much as possible. Like
what would you use those specifically?
Like a softbox would be great. If you have a ring light, you can't really use a softbox, but usually ring lights aren't as bright. So because they're usually like LED or a mirror, like an incandescent light shot into a mirror that spreads it around the lens. So usually the ring lights don't really need diffusion, but in general, diffusion's softer. It's more beautiful. It's you'd use harsh lights for like. Noir is famous for harsh lighting, so like crime, investigation, like doubt in the streets, in the town, in the city at night is like when the harsh lights come in. Usually associated with like, you know, crime and like counterculture. I don't, yeah, the word's escaping me, but if you really want like glamour, you want it soft as possible, no shadows whatsoever. It'll really smooth out the skin. Like shadows usually break up the skin if you just want as even as possible. But yeah, that's a good question.
Just head-on, straight-on lighting then.
Straight-on lighting, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
And then at the same note, you'll kind of want them to be looking pretty like right towards the camera, because if they're looking off camera, you want that lighting to be basically, long story short, directly where they're looking. So.
Calvin, did you have a question?
Yeah. Thank you. How far should the backlight be behind the subject normally?
Depends on how bright it is. Okay. So, if this light was brighter, if we had less diffusion on there, say we forgot our diffusion today,
yeah,
we'd probably just scoot it out as far as possible back. But if you have a well-diffused light, you can bring it up to pretty close. You know, you just don't. You'll have to make a judgment call on the camera. If it looks like it's overexposing, you'll want to like back it off a little bit.
Okay.
So you want to balance it to the face. So if the face is well lit, you can have a well lit backlight, and then maybe close the iris down a little bit on your camera just to keep it not as overexposed. But you just want to match the backlight with your key and fill lights, so things are lit evenly. So it's more of a ratio than an amount, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So no problem.
One more time, between the difference between the key light and the fill light, and far as, I don't know, what's the word, lumens, or what, the brightness or the distance, and obviously you want a contrast between the two.
Exactly.
But you're
So
still
if
coming
you-
at it at the same angles on both sides, right?
Yeah, that's how I usually set it up, at the same angle. But it's also a matter of taste of your cinematographer. Sometimes they might want, like, if they want a lot more drama, they can move the key light. So the difference between key and fill is the key is the brighter of the two. The fill light, it doesn't matter which side because that's a director's choice. But you'll want, usually, like when I set it up, I put them equal angles, and then the fill light is more just to like fill in the shadows. The key light blasts one side, the fill light fills in the shadows. And I usually have them about the same distance apart too, because I use different techniques to diffuse the light. So I just use the bounce for the fill and then a diffusion for the key. Some people don't even diffuse the key light, depending on what kind of lights they have. Ours tend to run pretty hot, so I avoid that. But back to Donna. Let's see, where's the iris control in this?
And yeah, that's amazing, because we never really light me straight on, but it looks great.
Oh. Yeah, so yeah, the light, like what Donna was saying, straight on is what I would do for most of the beauty things. You can add some fill lights, because ultimately, long story short, the more light you have, the less shadows you have. So if you want to hit Donna maybe on like equally, I would keep it balanced. But like say if you have a track lighting like this, you just have lights like pretty much coming from every angle. Like if you walk into CNN or something, they're going to have Kino flows, which are, they're fluorescents, and I mentioned avoid using fluorescents. Normal fluorescents look terrible on video. Really nice, expensive fluorescents look great on video. So you can have just, you know, stacked about, and there's no way you can get a shadow on her face because light's coming from every angle. So that's ideal. This is a way that you can give nice even lighting on the run, on a budget. There's a lot of different reasons why you may only have one or two lights. If you have two lights, do one straight in the middle and one on the backlight, I would recommend. And you can even do the backlight from a little bit of an angle too, which is just gives it a little more dynamic contrast, but plus the light will stay out of your shot. So if you have it right behind the subject, you'll have to hide maybe a backdrop in front of the light or something to keep it out. But I prefer it usually to the side anyway, so it's a non-issue.
Are there typically a rule of thumb on how you shoot females and opposed to males in terms of accentuating certain body parts like lips, eyes, face, or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, I mean there definitely are some things you can do. One of the main differences for me is females tend to have long hair and men don't. So that's a big thing with the backlight. You don't want to blow it out to where it's overexposed to where the outer edges of women's hairs don't just look like they're on fire or something, like they're actually like emitting light sometimes. But as far as like angles go, I mean, from my experience, women hate to be shot from below the chin line. It's not flattering to men either, but I think women might be a little more critical about that. That's what, when I hear, yeah, that's like the feedback I get.
We've had so many men complain about that double chin thing.
Really?
Talk about the double chin and how you do that, because that was a real challenge in our business. We had to go reshoot.
Yeah, so if you do have the angle of the camera below the chin, like the low angle I was talking about, I mentioned it's not flattering because well, first of all, if you're shooting from above the chin angle, you get a pretty defined line from the chin because there's this line before the neck. But if you shoot up, where's that line? You don't see that line. It just kind of is all gradual all the way up. My beard doesn't really show a good example of what I'm talking about, but it's just kind of like there's no definition if you shoot below the chin. So, and then sometimes there can be a little too much definition and if you have like the double chin factor, but there's ways of sitting that you can like position your talent to not, sometimes when you move their head back, like they feel like they think they're sitting up straight, but really they're just like giving themselves a double chin. So you might just have to have them relax, actually sit up straight instead of backwards. That helps, but yeah, double chin is something you definitely want to enjoy and no one's going to be happy. So back to the lighting, I did want to mention a little more details. Like the 3-point lighting we had up first, that's what we called the side lighting, and I did mention that. It gives you a lot more tones on the face, the shadows, energy. You can even, as a director, try to show like maybe a duality or like some internal struggle with that. I mean, that's all about interpretation, but of the audience. But also, I did mention that side lighting emphasizes texture. So with the shadows, we'll show what, you can almost like guess what it feels like. If you get some side lighting on any fabric or something, you'll be able to tell. And then like with landscaping, or landscape videos or photography or something, side lighting will give, like early in the morning when the sun's low and to the side, it'll give really long shadows, really dramatic, really powerful shadows that your eyes are really drawn to. So you can use that to your advantage. And like I said, it'll emphasize your wrinkles. So you might want that if you're going for a piece where you really want to hit it home. Backlighting, I mentioned, is super important. It reveals the form of this subject, it really outlines you. And if you don't have anything else, like if we turn all these and the house lights off and we just have this backlight, Donna would be a silhouette right now. And that's a really cool effect. We use it sometimes, adds a lot of mystery, especially for a character reveal in a video. The first time you see someone in silhouette adds a lot of intrigue, and it's really cool effect you can give your audience. Also, one thing a backlight's great for is it reveals particles in the air. So dust or rain, they wouldn't really show up with just front lights. You would just lose them. It would shine right through. But with the backlight, like if you ever see headlights in a rain, like a car with headlights coming towards you, you can see the rain perfectly. But not necessarily the same if headlights are shining away from you into the darkness. You're just going to feel like you're soaking wet. And then lastly, we talked about the side lights, we talked about the backlight. The front lights are the last one. They're the most common, but they're the least dramatic. So that's good if you want to go glamour and beauty. You don't really want a dramatic shot. You want it just smooth and comfortable. So you're going to want to focus on more front lighting. I would put a backlight just for separation, but yeah, it hides the imperfections, and I touched on the ring light. So there's hard light and soft light. They are exactly how they sound. The hard light has the shadows. The soft light is the really super diffused for glamour. Most people can tell the difference. The larger the light you have, the softer it'll be, just because it's like adding this diffuser spreads out the light, so it becomes larger. And just two last terms, high key and low key. So high key lighting is a lot of lighting. So it's not many shadows because you're getting a lot of lights from different directions, and usually has happier connotations. Low key lighting has a lot of contrast and deep shadows. So really effective to convey mood and emotion. Like I mentioned, camera angles, really effective to convey certain types of emotion, and just general feelings you get from your subject. Try out different things. Don't be afraid to explore. These are just like guidelines. They're basic guidelines. So whenever I try to teach someone about lighting, I want to encourage them to try weird things, because that's what filmmaking's all about. You really want to be like that on that next idea, that because if you do it just like everyone else does, you're going to get lost in that sea, because everyone produces video now. So get creative and have fun with it, and that's the most important part.